Mr. Chittister, Mr. Jeff Chittister.
Hey, Skip Murphy, what's up?
Well, I want to say thank you very much for helping to put on a good tea party. Certainly a lot of people here representing their groups. The Liberty groups came out to support the Granite State Patriot Liberty PAC in
That was
this.
a great turnout.
And it was nice to see that Senator Santorum, you have to say it, when you get a big name to come in and turn around their plans, their travel plans to speak to the assembled tea partiers, it's a big plus.
Well, and I think that helped in the straw poll as well.
So 90% of success is just showing up, as I say in my business, which is going and putting out fires of the technical variety.
Well, absolutely, too. And I think that, it was nice that he could make it. It's not really a reflection on some of the other candidates. Some of the other candidates already had strong commitments already, and they all expressed, really the fact that they would have loved to, but the other commitments pushed them away.
Right.
So, but it was nice that he was able to change things around and hang out with us.
It was certainly the Patriot pastor. I always love listening to him because, as we were talking with Dr. Julianne Cooper, who is starting a new school, we have to say over and over again, we have forgotten our history. We have forgotten our fundamental principles. And he certainly brings that back to us in a way that most people kind of go, what?
And exactly, and I think especially when you look at it, I don't know, with the video, when people look at it, he has that binder. He must have 50 of those binders that are just rich with historical information. But the other thing is that if you ever get into his home, and he opens his home up to people, his documentation library, going way back to even before we, in 1776, fought for our independence, he has documentation, either original or really great copies, dating back even to the Mayflower Compact, which is just great.
Oh, absolutely. And those are the things that are coming out nowadays as we explore the history, as we explore the political possibilities. And I maintain, and I think, Mike, that you share this as well, we cannot move ahead until we go back to the past.
Well, absolutely. A great house is built on a solid foundation. And, when you look at that foundation, we're blessed here in New Hampshire because our foundations are the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and our state constitution.
It's one of the strongest.
It's one of the strongest, and those are rich words that help us really defend our liberty.
Not only is it our right and our duty, as it says in the Declaration of Independence, to alter and abolish those forms of government which become oppressive, but unlike some other states, the New Hampshire Constitution actually expressly states the right and duty of the state legislature to interpose itself in the case of bad laws.
Well, absolutely, and it's all through that state constitution. When you look at Article 7, state sovereignty. When you look at Article 10, right to resist. That's really what these days are about. And normally, and you've seen my son, he couldn't be here today. He went down to the Red Sox game. But normally, we're seeing a new generation of kids actually start to listen to those words because they do touch them.
Yeah, and it's actually almost a case of, kids are always the rebellious kind. It's almost cool now to be conservative.
Oh, it is. I always tell people, my mother was a debutante from Massachusetts. My dad was a hillbilly from West Virginia. I was born to be a liberal Democrat. And what happened is I became a conservative, and as they saw me go out there and learn a little bit more and try to really understand why my values were what they were, they turned. Because they understood that I was really looking at these issues from a perspective that all of us have to look at it from.
Now, certainly, you're going around, you're doing a lot of emceeing of these kinds of events, you're helping to put a lot of them on. How do you feel that the state of New Hampshire is feeling right now? Certainly, there was the big overthrow, as it were, of the Social Democrats back in November 2nd. We've seen all of the Liberty and Freedom Republicans rushing into that void. And they've done a lot of stuff in New Hampshire which has raised a lot of hackles from those people who believe, what are you doing to my government? And not understanding, it's not about your government, it's about you. What do you think is going to happen next?
Well, I think what is going to happen next, unless these liberty-minded individuals get better at conveying their message, there is going to be a slight turnaround. I don't know how much of a turnaround, but there will be a slight turnaround. Each individual person has to be that beacon of understanding as to what we're trying to achieve and what we do to achieve those ends. And I find that, most of the people, especially in the House and the Senate right now, are very good at conveying why these steps are necessary, but some aren't. And when you have confusion, and when you have doubt, and when you have a lack of really intellectual ability to discuss these issues, people turn away from you?
I don't know how you follow that.
All right. Well, here's something.
I try to do my best to expound on the history and the solid foundation that Constitution provides, and how we have to build on that base. The metaphor for building a house, I think we have our foundation and our strong first floor. But somebody put a pretty rickety second floor on there, and you can't build any further up until you fix the problems.
Well, and I think when you looked at, because Mike did a wonderful job putting the Nullification Now tour that happened a couple weeks ago. You were there as well. What happened? A lot of people who were out there protesting were suddenly, unbeknownst to them, were talking to one of the leaders, Michael Bolton, came in and talked to him, and they thought this guy made absolute sense, unaware completely that he was the guy leading the Nullification Now. And I think that's the kind of intellectual, common sense individuals we need. You have to embrace the knowledge that strengthens your position. And that's what I think that we all need to get better at. I mean, my son reads the Constitution constantly. He doesn't just read it once and go away. And one thing he has taken up, and one of the habits he takes up with me now, is every morning we wake up on July 4th and we take that Constitution out, and we take that Declaration of Independence out, and we read it and just saturate it. But he's continuing to do that.
Well, I think you have to. It's not a huge document. It's just so. But there's so many little subtle points in there, all of which are acting to restrain government.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And he gets with Dan, and he gets, you've been around it too.
In fact, I'm going to mention that the person over, in fact, let's see if I can do this right. Right over here in your video camera right now, over Mike's shoulder, is Dan Itzy.
He's great.
And we have started a new series on Granite Rock where we are reading each and every one of the articles in the New Hampshire Constitution, and he is doing an expository on that. So, folks, stay tuned. Keep watching the Grok. The next couple of versions will be up fairly soon.
And that's what is needed. Because what happens is when you have someone like Dan Itzy, when you look at the 10th Amendment Center, they have taken a lot of the stuff that Dan has done and used it. So we have these leaders in this state. We have people who are not only compassionate, but they bring such intellectual, common sense understanding as to how to solve these problems. Why wouldn't we take advantage of those resources? It's great for us.
And the 10th Amendment Center is a great resource center that provides scholarly and constitutional articles that every one of us can access. And I believe there's a link off of Granite Rock.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
And I have my funny 10th Amendment and Dan Itzy story there, because I met Dan Itzy a year, maybe 2 years ago, and I met the sentimental people about 18 months ago as well. And I started reading the stuff on the 10th Amendment Center, and I got all excited, and I sent this model legislation to Dan Itzy and said, boy, this stuff is great. And he said, where do you think they got it from?
Exactly. And that's the neat thing. And I think, it was what was interesting about today, Rick Santorum being one of those issues, is that it reminds everybody how important our role as New Hampshireites are. That we have this ability in this next election to really send forth a strong conservative individual who can really stand on the stage with President Obama. Make no mistakes about it. And Rick Santorum was absolutely right. Charisma is a key, but charisma is useless unless the intellect is behind it. And I think that's the key.
Absolutely, because he's about to become $1 billion Barry.
Oh yeah, he's close to it.
It was going to be a big thing. Now, what's the next thing up for you now that this event is over?
Well, with this event over, because I do my radio show on the other side. You come on that every once in a while. The big thing for me is that I've been blessed where I get to meet with these candidates. You have too. I've seen Mike. It really is starting to. I'm going to start putting a small series of meetings together with these candidates, where the rule is this: they get to talk for 15 minutes, and then for an hour and a half they get Q&A.
Wow.
And that's really what's going to make the difference when we look at how we go forth with the next president. And it's really baptism under fire. It has to be. We're going to respect the autonomy, and we're not going to have the media there, because sometimes that just gets in the way of us really looking at the truth. But we're going to have solid people in there who have asked some hard questions up to this point. They're going to push them on the knowledge of the Constitution. They're going to push them on their principles, and they're going to point out their failures and see how they respond.
We have to do that, because if we don't do that, Democrats surely will. We have to have somebody who's going to stand up to the worst that can be thrown at it. There's no skeletons in his closet, and that absolutely gets it and is uncorruptible. I got somebody in mind that I like for that, but there are others, and there's a whole bunch of really good conservatives at the front of our movement at the moment. And some of them are running, and some of them are helping to select. And you just look at the work that Steve King and Jim DeMint, and I believe Mike Pence in the background too, are doing together. And it's very interesting that Steve King and Jim DeMint are coming here at the end of the month for Jennifer's We People meeting, because I believe those two folks are actually trying to push the process so that we don't just get a mixed guy in line. Jim DeMint's done that very successfully in the Senate. Steve King's done a little bit of it in this current Congress to promote good conservatives, and I think they're working to promote a good conservative president. And more
That's what I'm here for.
Well, and I call them and I choose each one of them because we get a chance to talk to them every time. The triangle of liberty. You know, what Iowa does and then hands off to New Hampshire, and then how New Hampshire hands it off to South Carolina. You can come out of that South Carolina primary with a strong conservative. So if we are working together with people like Jim DeMint and Steve King, and then we go down and they've already embedded themselves in the organization down in South Carolina, we could go into Super Tuesday with the candidate we've always hoped for. Not the person who's next in line, not the person who we think is just going to look pretty on TV, but that culmination of a great conservative like Ronald Reagan.
All right, well, Jeff, I'm going to throw this out to you. You willing to come on Grok Talk sometime real soon?
Well, anytime whatsoever. I mean, the sad part about it is that my schedule tends to get oddly busy very quickly, because I'll go through those moments of nothing happening, and then suddenly, within a day's time, I'm booked up solid. But I'd love to come on, because Skip, and I know your listeners are listening. But one of the great things, I got to say, thank you to you and Debbie. Your son's coming home. What an absolute blessing that is. But great people who serve their country do it because of the foundation that a family sets for them. And you people are wonderful, and your son is just a representation of the character that you've really helped him build. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff, and we appreciate all that you do to shine the beacon of liberty for us.
I just talk in front of a microphone.
I mean,
I look at this group and I look at this crowd and I look what you guys do at Granite Rock, and I look at that and I go, these are really the leaders. Each one of these individuals who sat here with these signs today, with these flags, are really going to be the catalyst of continue, as Ovid said, and I love when he says it, the reformation of really that new exploration of who we are as a country and what we need to do to preserve it.
And you can really shape it here. I mean, not only were there the speeches at the State House yesterday, that was the front page story. The back page story was going on in the basement in the morning, where one of the candidates was there with his team and probably 30 or 40 activists who came to have breakfast, to listen to him speak and ask questions, and the answers were really good. And not only that, I wasn't so much focused on the candidate. I went to sit down with his chief of staff. I wanted to make sure that they really understood what they needed to do to ramp up in New Hampshire to get a purchase, and they were getting the message.
Yes, I've already zoomed in on the button. We already know who it is. But so, anyways, everybody is almost ready to go, and I did promise one more person, so I'm going to sort of shuffle you off the stage. The stage that you were standing on is getting ready to be shuffled off.
As they take my equipment down.
Yeah, you may want to be over there to watch. So, Jeff, I have one question left for you.
Fire away, bud.
When you want to know what's going on in the conservative area of New Hampshire, where do you go to read?
Granite Rock, #1. It's one of my first morning leads. It's on my quick fire. I sit there and I read it right off the bat in the morning. And I follow you guys throughout the day. I encourage everybody, because if you really want to know what's going on in New Hampshire, and really, like I said, New Hampshire leads. That's the reality of it. You've got to go to the Granite Rock, and if New Hampshire leads, then Granite Rock is certainly part of that leadership.
Well, Jeff Chittister of The Wave, every Sunday morning from 11 to
12 o'clock.
11 to 12 or 11 to 1?
11 to 12.
I'm so bad at dates and times. But anyway,
there's so much crammed into that 1 hour, it feels like 2 hours.
Absolutely. Jeff, I want to say thanks for taking a few minutes with us here at Granite.
It was my pleasure. God bless you, Skip, and your wife.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks. Thanks, Mike.